Well, it wouldn't be a live stream without a rough start. So hopefully everything is streaming well. We're actually multi-streaming out to YouTube and Facebook right now. So if you guys are tuning in, it should be working. Now, if you are on Facebook for some reason, our bot only will process questions entered on YouTube. I don't believe I can integrate the chat bot with Facebook, but I will try to keep an eye on it and see. I was trying to get this to also stream out to Twitch because we do actually post to Twitch with the multi-streaming setup. We tried with Streamlabs on another one the other night and it just didn't work out. The video quality was just garbage. So StreamYards was what we were using. I wasn't a big fan of it. So I'm using Streamlabs right now, and it seems to be okay, but what's the word I'm looking for? It's not working with Twitch, and it's giving me a 401 error. So if anybody has messed with this stuff, let me know, because I would like to be pushing out our content to multiple different channels. So I don't think Streamlabs supports streaming out to TikTok. I think you have to do that from a phone. We do have a TikTok, and I do occasionally post on there. And Krista will take videos and post there occasionally because I let her have it on her phone there. So if you guys did enter any questions into the chat before we start the stream, the bot will not pick it up. The way to know if the bot picks up your questions is it will give you a reply saying, hey, you got 10 points, and it's been added to the queue. So just if you guys posted a question before we actually started streaming, then it's not going to be in my queue of questions here. So I do have a couple updates here. I have been working on the firmware builds for the Ender 5 Plus. We do have the dual cable LCD adapter boards back in stock. So if you guys are waiting on those, we do have them. We have some of the Creality screens back in stock. The standard 128/64 ones, those went out of stock pretty quickly, but I do have some more showing up today. Inventory is coming in. It's taken a little bit just because of shipping delays and everything else going on. I'm just checking here to see where my next batch is in terms of the LCD. So we have a small batch coming in. It looks like UPS is showing we should have 12 more coming in today. And then I have a larger order coming in, I believe, on Friday. So we should have a good stock of those screens towards the end of the week. It's been a pain to get them in because apparently the actual displays themselves are in high demand and the factories are still trying to catch up with back orders. So yay. But we do have them coming in. So in terms of the firmware, I'm kind of jumping around here, but that's how it goes. In terms of firmware stuff, so I did start working on compiling for the Ender 5 Plus on the 427 board and the SKR E3s. I had a note in my to-do list, I think came up on a couple streams back, and those are passing compile. Literally just finished doing test compiles on those like 10 minutes before I tried to go live, and then I was fighting with OBS. So those should be coming to the next release. Now, those will require a couple of things. If you want to use either the 427 board with your Ender 5 Plus or the SKR series, you will need the adapter boards that we just got back in stock. These are on our website. I think they're like 10 bucks. And then you also need our LCD conversion kit, which those right now are out of stock because the screens are out of stock. But like I said, we should have some more added to the site later today. We don't stock them, or we don't sell back orders on that type of product just because of how wonky everything's been with the supply chain, you know, because if I see that it's going to ship in a week and then it does, and then there's delays, I don't want people to be, you know, sending us a billion emails. We used to do back orders, but people were not understanding that, you know, we have no control over how fast things come in. We're just at the mercy of the suppliers and the shipping companies. So we don't do back orders on anything other than, I think, printed parts is the only thing we allow back orders on. So I don't think I have any other updates. If you guys notice, there's an Ender 6 right here, which means tonight I'm going to be fitting our enclosure to it and doing the installation video for that. and the documentation. So before anybody asks, it's coming very soon. I just had to get around to getting through the backlog. And then this printer is actually going to the local high school here. They're putting it in one of their labs. So it's actually printing pretty well. I printed a bunch of fidget cubes on it. There's another one in my pocket. And I love these things. They're amazing. Yeah. I also have some stuff coming in from a company called Blaze Cut. I don't know if you guys are familiar with them, but they're a fire suppression company, and they have these. They're a passive device, and it's a tube that's filled with an extinguishing agent, and when it gets exposed to heat, it ruptures and puts out the fire. So we're actually going to do our own demo video, and I'm going to test it myself just like we do with everything else here. And with a printer in an enclosure, and we're literally going to intentionally cause a fire just to see if the product works as advertised. And if it does, we will be carrying them in our shop. So I've seen videos demoing them, but as with everything, I like to test it myself. So there'll be a fun video coming out demoing that product, and if it works or not, either way, the video is getting posted. I'm pretty sure it will. I read up on the company, and they're about $179 retail, and they'll just attach to the top of your printer enclosure. You know, if you do have, I know they will work well in an enclosure in terms of, like, you know, if I just had them on the top of the racks, if I had a fire start here, I don't know if it would work well in that. They're more designed for an enclosed space. So, which in my opinion is the best thing for them, because where you're most likely to have something start on fire is an enclosure where there's higher temperatures. So I don't know what print I'm going to sacrifice, but I have plenty of them laying around. It's probably going to be an ANET. I feel like it would be fitting to do a fire test video with an ANET printer. What do you guys think? So let's see. Oh man, my mouse is being weird. So yeah, definitely thinking we're going to probably do the ANET. I got an ET4 and I have ET5 that can be sacrificed for the good of a video. An ANET or a Prusa. Oh, if I do the Prusa, the comment farm, the Prusa bots are going to be all over that. But yeah, we do have an old enclosure that's in our print farm, and I'm going to build that, and we're going to sacrifice it. So that's about it. So if you guys do want to ask a question, you have to put !Q in front of your question. If you don't, the bot will not pick it up, and I will not read it. So we are using the bot, and it's been making these streams a lot easier because I can easily rapid fire through things. In terms of circling back to the Ender 5 Plus with like the 427 boards and the SKR E3 mini boards, that firmware will come out on the next release. I don't have a set date for that release, just because there's other fixes and patches and updates coming along with that. But I will create product pages, so if you have those boards and you want to purchase the full conversion kit, you just hit add to cart and it'll add all the parts to your cart. The LCD, the cables, the housing, and the adapter board. And I'll probably also have it so you can add on the 427 board to that. So if you already have an Easy Board V1 or V2, that printer has already been supported with the same type of setup with the LCD conversion kit and the adapter PCB. So let's get into the questions here. So Tommy O is saying, hey Tim, will the display board work with the Easy Board? I'm not sure what you mean, but I'm going to assume that you're talking about this. This was originally designed for Easy Boards, but because the pinouts are the same on like the 427 board and the SKR E3 Mini, and even the old 8-bit boards, these do work with multiple different machine types. Now, if you are buying an Easy Board and you need this adapter board, you can add it on when you purchase the Easy Board at a discounted price. Just a little bonus for buying one of our boards, you get a discount off this. And right now, I don't know if you guys saw, our Easy Boards are $10 off right now. So if you guys are looking to pick one up, we have the adapter boards and we have the Easy Boards in stock. So I'm checking the multi-stream, and I don't think anybody's watching on Facebook. You would think people will watch on Facebook, but you know, hey, the more places our content goes out to, the better. Remo heard the crinkle and he thought it was he thought it was a treat, but it's not. Sorry to disappoint you. One last thing for you home automation guys. I don't know if you guys have heard of the HASP panel, H-A-S-P. I think it's called HASP panel or HASP1, H-A-S-P-O-N-E. It's an in-wall and also desk mount project. So it's a 3D printed case. There's a bunch of parts to it. And I have the PCBs on the way. So it's an open source project for either an in-wall control unit that runs off of mains power. So it's got a little 5-volt AC to DC meanwhile power supply in it. I'm building 2 of them for myself for my own personal use. And if I like how the project goes, I'm going to look at actually selling pre-built ones and kits with all the parts, with the displays, all the resistors, the power supplies, the cables, and the ESP chips and everything. So kind of a whole, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a whole DIY kit and then one that's pre-built. And the cool thing is the way they have it, they have STL files. It's obviously 3D printed. I wouldn't be even talking about it if it wasn't 3D printed. But they have options to mount it in a single gang box, a dual gang, 3 gang. So if you want to have multiple in a standard US outlet or wall box, you could. But they also have an option to have a little desk mount, and you would just not populate the actual AC to DC power supply, and you'd run it directly off of a 5-volt power adapter, like a USB adapter or a 5-volt power supply. And the cool thing is, once it's connected to your network and integrated with Home Assistant has full control over it. So it's a really cool project. There's a bunch of other ones I looked at that use different displays and chips. And this one seemed to be the best one, in my opinion, because it's fully controllable from Home Assistant. And it's not that hard to get set up. The hardest part is going to be actually physically building it. So there's rooms in my house where I would like to have something other than having to pull my phone out. I just walk in the room and you can, be, oh, let's set the lights to blue. Let's dim the lights to 50%. Let's go ahead and turn the fan on, that kind of stuff. And it's pretty cool. So I think I'm waiting on just one more part. I'm waiting on the meanwhile power supplies to come in and the PCBs. So yeah, it's something cool. I am trying to push more into the home automation space and DIY space, because there's obviously a lot of overlap. It's something I'm interested in, and why I originally got into 3D printing was I wanted to be able to print something to hold my electronics projects. I am going to be doing a stream later tonight. If you guys see these little tubes behind me, this is going to be another project with a little housing I actually designed. So if you guys see this, we have our 12-volt output and 3 I/O pins, a DC in, and then a button's going to go here. And shout out to Top Hat Waffle for giving me a hand designing this. We got a little friction fit lid. And then this little module is actually, this board is from a guy named Serco. He is paused right now at his Etsy shop, but this is a nice little compact WLED controller that supports a power button on these the 2 little pin headers there, and it's actually got its own 5-volt, 12-volt to 5-volt step down on here, and a little ESP01 module plugs into it, and then you have a full LED controller that actually integrates with Home Assistant. So I have 4 of these here, and these I'm going to use to control this guy for the basement office. And I'm going to show you what's in here, because I bought these. Oh, this is the one that's not opened yet. I opened one already. These are light strips that come in a channel. There's little feet that mount on here. And if you see here, we have a 3-pin connection. And this 3-pin connection is a 12-volt input and then a signal. And these are NeoPixel compatible strips. These, I got a deal on them. I paid about 20 bucks a piece, and these are to put in the corners for ambient lighting. So I'll be able to have these in the back to light up the room. And these are all, there's 3 LEDs per segment that are controllable. So there's 28 3 LED segments in one of these. The normal price on these, I think, are like 50 bucks. But it comes with a crappy little controller that's RF. And we're going to get rid of that because the stock controller does not integrate with Home Assistant. But I like doing stuff like this where you take an existing product and we're like, nah, that's not good enough. We want it smart. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing, and I'm going to be doing some more fusion work because I want to design this house. I want to add on, now that I have the actual housing done, I want to add a little clip on this so it can clip to the leg so it's all compact. But yeah, that's what I got going on. Some more home automation stuff. If I do like these boards, I mean, so far, they're pretty slick. I think I paid $10 a piece for the little board. It does not include the ESP module. But I actually am going to reach out to them and see if these do work out. This stuff like this is what I'd like to carry because this is such a tiny little controller. And if you're just controlling LEDs, this is freaking awesome. So, and he's got 3 input-output pins on here. If you see here, 1, 2, 3. One is set up for a motion sensor, so a PIR sensor, which I'm not going to be using. And the other one is for a second, so you can run for a second strip. So you can control 2 strips and have a motion sensor to turn the lights on if it detects motion. And I think the other one could be either for a, I got to look it up, but I think it's a analog output. I'm looking up, I saved it. Shield pinout, let's see. He did a lot with this board. So IO1 is LED strip digital input, so connecting to an LED strip. The second IO, number 2, is for a clock controller or Dallas temperature sensor or an IR sensor for like infrared, like a remote. And then the third one you can use for a PIR sensor or a relay. And then the 2-pin header is for a momentary switch, and the firmware is set up to just support all these. So like if I plug this in and I touch these 2 pins together, it toggles the power on and off with WLED. So I'm kind of excited if you can't tell, because these integrate with Home Assistant and a bunch of other stuff. WLED is awesome if you're building LED-based projects. So there's a bunch of different firmwares you can do with the ESP devices. It's just choosing the one that works best for your application. If I'm just doing LED control, I'm probably going to use WLED. If I'm doing something, you know, like my humidors that I built, those have ESP chips in them. I used ESP Home for those. And then if I have stuff that's just like a bulb or a, you know, a Wi-Fi switch, I typically stick with Tasmota. So yeah, also one thing is if you guys are waiting on the easy plugs to come back in stock, they should be shipping to us on the 18th, so about 9 days, and we usually get them about 5 days after. So towards middle end of this month, we should have more easy plugs back in stock. So, but they're all custom made for us, so they take about a month and a half to get made. And somebody went and bought a bunch of them, so it kind of threw our stock predictions off of, oh, I thought we had 2 months of stock. You know, we can wait to put the order in a couple more weeks or a month. And yeah, somebody went and bought a bunch of them. I mean, it's good that we're selling the product, but I hate when that happens because it throws off our stock predictions. So let's see. Mark Line, when will the tough hot ends be back in stock? Let me pull up my purchase orders here. Those are on order. I did just get... Actually, I think I just posted that last night. Let's see. Hot ends, they're not on that invoice. Hang on, inbound stock. I know we were waiting on a couple of other things here. I'm just checking our purchase orders. Come on, you can do it, website. I believe in you. Sometimes it's kind of pokey. I'm looking here. Maybe I don't have those on order. Is that a case where we went out of stock and no one notified me? Danielle. I'm looking here. Unless our stock got mixed up, I'll ping them and see if we are actually out of stock on them, because I'm showing out of stock on the website. We might not be. I'm wondering if something happened, like they were doing an inventory count and forgot to repopulate it. 1 second. Anyways, I'll circle back to that. I'll figure it out because they're either usually they're pretty good about telling me what we need to reorder. So let's see here. Vincent, what is wrong with when Marlin doesn't save the baby step position even after storing settings? If you don't have an ABL probe, baby stepping will not save to your EEPROM. The only way you can store your baby stepping settings is if you have an auto bed leveling probe. If you don't have an auto bed leveling probe, then it's not going to save. It's not going to save the settings. So you have to have an ABL probe in order for the settings to save. So if you're just baby stepping without a probe, you're not going to get the save settings. What you should do then is re-level your bed to make it closer by however amount you baby stepped. So my shop managers replying back to me because I was like, where are they? But if not, they'll probably be, if like, let's say they aren't, I know they aren't ordered. If we're actually out of them, they usually take about 2 to 3 weeks, a month tops to get those in. Those usually don't take us too long to restock. Let's see, cleaning filaments, useful or snake oil? That's a good question. I've used them and I would say they're useful. I don't use them too much. And here's a little trick. You can also use nylon as a cleaning filament, especially if you're doing cold pulls. I haven't had to do a cold pull in a while. I probably should have done one on this Ender 6. This Ender 6 out of the box had a partially clogged nozzle. Thanks, Creality. Yay. But, yeah. Any ET on the Raspberry Pi boards? Your guess is as good as mine. I've been trying to source them, and everybody is just out of stock on them in terms of getting ones in bulk. Even just one-off ones that you guys could go and purchase, I have not seen any reliable stock come in. So, yeah. Yay, chip shortages. Peter Anderson, he's got EasyBoard 1, 2, board's just over a year old. So it shouldn't be an issue, right? Could the error be caused by faulty steppers? So if you pull up the serial console on your printer and connect to it, you should be able to see what the status is and what the error is, because the TMC, so if you're going to TMC connection error on the screen, then that means a driver failed. And like any electronics, whether it's ours or somebody else's, they can just go out. It's not very common on our boards, but it's not impossible. You know, I'm not gonna lie. Oh, they'll never break because they're higher end. No, like they're like any other electronic, and you know, if they get zapped with ESD or they're just old, or you know, everything's gonna fail at some point. That's just how the universe works. So let's see here. I'm just refreshing my questions here. Jay Moore is asking about if a flex plate will fix a warping bed problem on Ender 3 V2. That's an interesting question because it's not. Yes and no. It will make it a little bit better because the plate is not going to bend. Like if you have a dip in the center, the magnet's still going to pull the plate down, but it's not usually going to pull all the way down in that center location or wherever the warping is. My answer would be like, don't expect putting a flex plate on any of your printer beds to fix the warping issue. If you have a warp bed, your options are to either replace the bed with something flat, which is very expensive. If you're going to actually get something that's guaranteed to be flat, like, you know, a Mic 6 aluminum plate, you're going to easily spend over $100 on like a 235 by 235 bed, or you just spend $60 and get our Easy ABL and let the probe take a reading of the mesh and then use your Z-axis to compensate it. So the answer is like putting a flex plate on the bed is not going to resolve that problem. So yeah, I wouldn't count on it. It might make it better, but it's not going to completely solve the issue. The proper thing to do would be just put the most cost-effective thing to do is just put a bed leveling sensor on there like our Easy ABL, or if you want to spring for the money and you know somebody that can machine an aluminum plate, have them make you an aluminum plate, and then you're also talking then adding a heater on. So replacing a bed on a printer can easily get to be, if you're having something machined, easily get to be the $150 range in a 235 size. I've looked into having beds made and then sourcing heaters, that kind of stuff. So I just throw the ABL on, I call it a day, because it's not very cost effective to swap the entire bed out. So, all right. And Danielle said we do not have, they're out of stock, but yeah, so I will have to order those tonight. So if you're waiting on a tough hot iron, it's going to be at least 2 to 3 weeks. So, cause there was some mishap. Let's see, JT, do you, plan to make a competitor to the BTT or Feistek Spider? I would like to have one of the Voron builds with the larger easy boards for the Voron 1 and 2. So we talked about doing an easy board Pro, like EasyBoard V2 Pro, and that idea has been completely shelved now. I literally had a discussion after the last stream, and the reason it's shelved now is because of how bad the part shortages are and how bad it is to reliably get the same parts over and over again, whether it's processors, voltage regulators, that kind of stuff. The risk we run is we spend thousands and thousands of dollars developing a board and making sure it's great, and then we can't get the parts to actually put into production. So until the shortage lets up, which I don't know when it is, I don't think anybody knows, and it just seems like this long drawn out thing, we're not going to be making any other boards. I am going to look into options from MKS, because I know MKS just came out with an 8-driver board. Somebody in our Discord told me about it, and it looks pretty good. So, and in general, MKS is kind of my go-to if I'm going for a universal board that's, not expensive. And I'm just not a big fan of the Duet boards. Their software is what I don't like. Their hardware I'd like. I'm not a fan of Lcd Firmware. So, and that's just my personal opinion. I just find it not very intuitive. Like in my opinion, it's more complicated to set up than Marlin because their documentation is not very user-friendly. So, yeah, the MKS Monster 8. So that's what we're gonna have to do, because I can't take the risk of spending thousands of dollars on developing a nice big ass board that'll do tons of drivers and tons of settings, and then we can't make it. The main reason we're able to make EasyBoard V2s right now is we bought a ton of inventory for parts, so we had them on hand to run them. The only thing that we've had to change on the EasyBoard V2s is we went from using Panasonic capacitors to Nichicons, and the Nichicons are actually better. So, in terms of their ESR, but stuff like that is easy to swap out to switch out capacitors because there's so many different versions of the same footprint. But when you're talking about voltage regulators and processors, that could cause you to completely have to redesign the product, which is the whole reason the V2 board came out in the first place. We were actually planning on running the V1.2s up until about right now in 2022, but we had to push ahead and start testing the V2s earlier than we expected because we couldn't get LPC processors. The EasyBoard V1 is still a great board. It had a little bit more life left in terms of us selling it, but I couldn't get the chips. I still haven't been able to buy LPC chips for, God, I don't even know how long. It's been a while. Can someone take care of that spammer, that Cosmina? Just ban that idiot. Anyways, let's see. Nadir is looking for an X carriage for his Wanhao duplicator i3 with the E3D V6 Volcano, and he's got 18mm prox sensor, so like easy ABL type 1. So here's the thing with the Wanhao duplicator i3. The rod spacing, so the distance between the rods is actually identical to the ANET A8. So if you go on Thingiverse and look for a V6 mount, and I know there are ones, I'm literally using one on my AM8, which is started its life as ANET A8. There's a ton of V6 mounts that hold a prox sensor in a 5015 fan. So one of the things you guys got to keep in mind is kind of think outside the box, and there's a lot, because there's a lot of crossover between printer models. Like, example, the rod spacing is the main thing for the carriages going onto a Wanhao i3 or an ANET A8. they're cross compatible. Just like how you can take a CR10 mount and put it on Ender 3, or Ender 3 mount and put it on a CR10. There's a lot of reusage of the same components, and sometimes even if they're not identical, they're close enough where you can print it out and, you know, get your Dremel out and modify it so it bolts up. So let's see. Art with Benji's asking, he's looking for a JG Maker or A5 heated bed. I don't carry that kind of stuff. I would check out AliExpress. As much as I hate AliExpress, just make sure you pay with like PayPal or credit card, so if you get screwed over, you don't lose out on it. But yeah, I mean, if I was looking for one, that's probably where I go, or check Amazon. Look for Prime shipping. There's a lot of, you know, Amazon, I feel like, has become basically AliExpress with quick shipping, but at least they let you return anything. So if it's not what you get, you can send it back. But yeah, I would check on Amazon and AliExpress. I don't have JG's contact information, but as far as I know, they're not terrible with getting back to their customers. So I haven't heard any complaints with them. So let's see. Albert Drew's asking, Micro Store, you mean Micro Center, is selling Ender 3 Pro for $100 with a coupon. Happen to know what board is in it. If it's Micro Center, I'm pretty sure those are going to be the GD chips on the 422 boards, because that's what everybody's been saying. It might be why they're closing them out, because they're just not good boards. They have salmon skin issues. If you guys have a GD32 board, and this appeared on the old V11X boards, and I don't know if this is a timing issue with the processor, because as far as I recall, the STM32 ones with the 4988s do not have this issue, because we do have those in some of our print farm printers, and we do not have salmon skin. So it prints, but it's not good. And really the only way to fix this is to just replace the board. So just be aware of that. So it does print, it works, but it's not something I'd be happy with personally. But if you're getting it for $100, if you're getting an Ender 3 with for $100 with that board in it, just replace the board, because an Ender 3, regardless if the board works or not, is not a bad deal in my opinion. Nathan said he has easy Neos. He said that he found braiding the cables that lead up to the NeoPixel Strix eliminates the glitching issues. So if you're having glitching issues with NeoPixels in general, so I deal with NeoPixels not only on our printers with our Easy Neo strips, but I also deal with them a lot in the home automation stuff and DIY projects. The NeoPixel signal line are very sensitive. So if you have them run in parallel with like heater lines or near any big power lines or stepper motors, they do have a tendency to get confused, because that signal is getting interrupted going to the strip. Now on my Ender 6, haven't had any issues. I did a stream where I installed the Easy Neos on here, but that cable is routed completely away from all the other cables. Now it's not a common thing, but if you do also have in general electrical grounding problems on your printer, it's going to make that problem worse. So my thing is, if you are having issues and you had to braid it to reduce electrical interference, because that's what's causing it, is the line is picking up interference, that would prompt me then to go through and make sure that printer is properly grounded. And if you don't have a Meanwhile power supply in there, I would highly recommend replacing it with one, because the off-brand ones just cause all sorts of issues. And they're just not reliable. I don't like using off-brand power supplies, because if those go, they could potentially cause a fire. So not saying Meanwhiles are impervious to exploding, but they're much less likely to, because they're better built. Let's see. 3 Experiments says, you got one of our SSRs. Do I have a tutorial/safety video on it? We do not, but we do have a page on properly wiring a bed. If you do not have the knowledge to safely handle AC power, you shouldn't be messing with it until you educate yourself on it. The main thing is you're going to want to make sure everything is properly grounded, because if you have like a wire that gets frayed on the bed, it needs a path to ground. And if you don't have the bed grounded and your printer frame grounded, it's going to find that path to ground through yourself. The other thing I like to do when I'm wiring up AC beds for custom builds, it's usually when I deal with AC beds, is I will also put a circuit breaker in line on the line wire coming through. So let me see, TH30 SSR wiring. I know we have a guide, and I'll post that in the chat. But yeah, I'm not trying to sound like a dick or anything, but it's very serious. This is AC power can literally kill you. It's not me just being ooh boogeyman. You know, take your time and make sure you do things correctly. Otherwise, if something does go wrong, you could literally be in the hospital or worse, dead. Where's my too many windows open here? So I'm sending you the link to our wiring guide. And there we go. That should be in the chat now. Does that work? Does it highlight the person's name when I do it through the streamer? I just sent that through the chat bot. But there you go. It's in there. Already covered. Hybotics, stop spamming the chat with the same question. Let's see. Zeriel is asking if I install a heat break on Ender 3, do I need to changes in Marlin or just enough to do the PID? Just PID, that's it. Yeah, that's about it. So 3 experience, I sent you an Ender 6 mod link on Discord. Is it in the live streams channel? That's where it should be. I'm not hunting through all our... We have so many damn things here. Let's see. We did Ender 6Y relocation mount. Get 30 millimeters more print area. It's a little bracket to push it back. I mean, give it a try. See if it works. Just make sure to update your firmware. But yeah, that printer does have the potential for a little bit more travel. So, hey, if you need the extra build time, go for it. I don't, so I probably wouldn't do that to mine. But yeah, no, that's cool. Let's see, Andrew Osmond, do I have an estimated time for the Ender 3 S1 firmware? It's still in the box, so the answer is no. Any updates on the flex beds? That is a good question. They are on their way to us. We should have them in about 2 to 3 weeks. So stuff is, I have been on the back end of things. I have been trying to get inventory to come back in, and it's just been stuff after stuff after stuff in terms of trying to get things in, and it's just, honestly, it's pretty exhausting. But yeah, everything's slowly coming in. I gotta see if I can hunt down more Pi boards. So if you guys see anywhere where we can order Raspberry Pi boards that are not from unauthorized sources, let me know, because we are completely out of those and they're hard to find. And the ones we can find, they're gouging on the prices very bad. So, Tommy O, can you connect a Runout sensor to Octoprint? So you actually can connect a Runout sensor to Octoprint on your Pi's GPIO headers. There is a plugin, I don't know the exact name, but I know there is a plugin that will basically, it will monitor those input-output pins just like your printer firmware does, and then when the sensor triggers, it will send an M600 to your printer firmware. And if you're using our firmware, even if you don't have a filament sensor, M600 does work. Basically, I don't know if you guys know, with the firmware, when your filament sensor triggers, if it's connected to your control board, all that does is when that pin changes state from, you know, high to low or low to high, depending on what logic your sensor uses, all that does is inserts an M600 code into your G-code command queue. So basically, if you had it hooked up to Octoprint, maybe you have a board that doesn't have extra I/O pins, or you're using all of them, there is a plugin in Octoprint where you can wire up the 3.3, the ground, and the signal to an I/O pin, tell it what I/O pin you hooked it up to, and then when that sensor changes state, it will then send the M600. So essentially, it might be slightly slower to react, but it will achieve the same end goal, which is pausing the print when the filament runs out. So it's pretty cool. Octoprint is awesome because it's connected to a Raspberry Pi. You can do a lot of stuff. Like, you can also You can also drive NeoPixels and stuff. So like if you have a board, again, that you don't have enough input output pins, there are plugins for Octoprint to drive like stuff like our Easy Neo strips from a GPIO pin. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I feel like I should do a video about like cool little Octoprint plugins to get more functionality if your printer board's out of pins or something. So yeah, look through the plugin repository on Octoprint. There's a ton of cool stuff in there. The only problem is a lot of the plugins, they get put out and then the person who made them stops updating them and eventually they stop working. That's the only thing to keep an eye out for. You know, versus if you have something that's connected to your printer board and it's being run by the printer firmware, you don't really have that risk. So let's see here. JDCCC, webcam is timing out, running Octoprint on a Pi 4B 2 gig connected to a Sierra Tennis Pro. Any idea as to why? The first thing I would try is, I'm assuming it's just not showing the screen. I've had random issues where they just stop displaying the video, and there is a SSH command. Basically what is happening in my experience when that happens is the service that is driving the webcam and providing that video feed crashes in the background, and it just needs to be restarted. Let me see if I can find that, because I remember having to do that a couple times. I just reboot the Pi. I don't have it happen very often. I think maybe once a month one of mine will do it, and I have cameras on almost every single printer in here. But also another thing to keep in mind is if you're running your Pi over Wi-Fi, I've noticed that the webcam service is more prone to crashing over Wi-Fi, just because in general the Pi's Wi-Fi sucks. You know, if you guys are able to hardwire your Raspberry Pis, I highly recommend doing that. Even though it might be a little bit more of a pain, the user experience is a lot better. And on the older 3B and 3B pluses, the Wi-Fi actually puts a little bit of load on the processor so it can slow things down. Let me see here. Octoprint restart webcam service. So basically you would SSH into the Pi and then send a command. I think it's webcam D. Yeah, sudo system control restart webcam D. Or sudo service webcam D restart, and that should go ahead and restart. Let me see if any of mine are being finicky and see if I can demo it. Just watch, like I want something to break and it's not. The other thing too is check if you're running an older version of Octoprint. It might just be as simple as you might need to update because you're just having stability issues being on an older image. My Ender 5 Plus is one that frequently drops its webcam feed, and it's also on a much older image too. And look at that, it's not working. So let's see if this will work on here. I usually just reboot the Pi, but we're gonna see if this works. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Main monitor. So I've reloaded it. You can see here. I can tell this is an older Pi image. This is our Easy Pi image. This is an older one because it's not themed. So like in comparison, this is my newer image, and these are both Pi 4s. This is a newer image. You can see it's got the theme here. So, and this comes up really quick. This is actually right here to the left of me. But yeah, that's how it should come up. But this one frequently, this is like the one that is my problem child, and rebooting it fixes it. So, but let's see if this command works. I remember doing this years ago. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the IP address of my Pi, which is 172.16.21.202. So I'm going to type that into PuTTY here, hit open, and you can see it's asking me for a username. Since I'm using our image, I have the username is Pi, and the default image password for our image. So let's see here. If we do the sudo system control restart webcam D, let's see if that does it. So it says it restarted. Let's see if that fixed it. Voila! There it goes. Yeah, so that service is crashing. What I really should do is just re-image this with a new image. I'm not sure what version I'm running here. I see my Linux version, but yeah, I should probably just update this. This says Tuesday, September 24th, 2019. Let's just look at a comparison to my Ender 6, which I think is 21.204. That's Vicky. I think it's 201 actually. Yeah, this is a 2021 build here, where you can see this is 2019. One thing you could do also is you could try to update the OS. So I can do a sudo apt-get update, and this will pull down the latest packages for Raspbian. And it looks like this one's running Buster, which I know is an older one. What is my 6 running? My 6 is also running Buster. So they're both running the same operating system base. This one probably hasn't been updated in a while because these are behind my firewall and not exposed to the internet, so I rarely ever will go and update them. You can see this has got a ton of updates. So, but yeah, if you ever want to go in and update your actual Pi OS, you can also do just sudo apt-get update. And then after that completes, you can do a sudo apt-get upgrade, and then it'll ask you to confirm. So, and you can see this one doesn't have any updates needed. So, I know we got some Linux guys in here. Do any of you guys know of a tool that I could give all of my Pi's IPs with their logins and just do like a bulk command? Do you know what I mean? Like I hit one button and it sends sudo apt-get update and then apt-get upgrade to all of my Pi's at once. Does anybody know anything like that? Kind of like an SSH batch type of thing. I'm sure I could cobble together something, but I'm just curious to know if anybody else is familiar with that. But yeah, the sudo system control restart webcam D will do that. I just posted that posted that in chat. Cluster SSH. Awesome. I'll have to look that up. I'm gonna save that, and I'm gonna. Oh, I have to do a bash script. I can do bash. I don't like them, but I mean, it'd be nice if I could hit one thing and the SSH logins for my Pis, they're all using the same image. They're using our image, and like I said, they're using our default login because everything on my network's trusted and they're not exposed to the internet. So it would be very simple. Let's see. Let me get my videos moved back around here. Get my chat bot back up. And since we did start late and I don't have any pressing appointments, I don't have any appointments scheduled right now, I'm going to keep going a little bit longer. So, Vincent, is there a setting configuration ACE or configuration AV that needs to be uncommon to allow the printer to save the baby step position with a BL touch? No, it depends on your board. What board and printer are you running? Oh, you just have to write apt. See, I'm not a Linux expert, but I've been using Linux for quite some time, and I'm also always used to doing apt-get. So I can just do sudo apt update. That's interesting. It'll save me a couple minutes of time then, or a couple seconds, I should say. What were we talking about? Oh, the configuration H. Vincent, I hope you're still in here because I need to know what board you're using because I'm checking my config. I thought all of them we have the combined baby step and offset set to the source code. Let's see. Baby step always available. There should be. Yeah, our firmware, no matter what one you have, it's baby step zprobe offset is enabled. So you could have an EEPROM issue if it's not saving. Dimitri, have you heard of a Raspberry Pi locking up mid-print? Any ideas? So, we had issues in our print farm for a while with Pis locking up. What we actually did, and these are on Ender 3 Pros, running the 8-bit boards and their 32-bit boards. We had problems where they were pulling, they were pulling too much current over the USB port, and they were overdrawing the power supply, which is then causing them to crash. And we put those power blocker things that we carry, we have them in our shop. They're like $5 or $6. And we stopped having issues with them dropping connection and also locking up. And this is assuming that your power supply that's powering your Pi is fine. If your power supply that's powering your Pi is not fine, if you look at the red LED on your control board of the Pi, it will be off or consistently off. If it randomly flickers off once in a while, like when a load comes on, that's not something I worry about. It's when it's consistently off or it's constantly flashing on and off. The other thing too, SD cards wear out. You could also just have a bad SD card. So I'd check. If you have one of the power blockers already, I would then just get a new SD card, put a new image on it. We do share our EasyPi image that we ship with our EasyPi kits on our site. If you want something that's, pre-set up and has a bunch of extras added on that we prefer, you can go ahead and do that. But yeah, I would say if you don't have the power blocker, add one of those on. And then if you do, I would start by getting a new SD card and reflashing and start there before you go chasing it down a rabbit hole. And this is all assuming that you aren't having power issues. So, let's see. What's your opinion on the new... Jay's asking about the new full of bed and its replacement bed for the Ender 3. Well, this doesn't look to have... Remote, enough! There's no one there. This doesn't even look like it has a heater. So you're spending $85 for a bed, and you still need to buy a heater? Max temperature 150. I mean, looking at the pictures, it doesn't look like it has a heater in it. I don't see any wires on this. This looks like just a bed. Which... even heat distribution, has built-in cable strain relief. I'm looking at the product description here. Our full of bed plus heater combo. So does this come with a heater? I'm assuming it does. It says heaters manufactured in the UK with strict quality control, but their pictures don't show any wires. It's like, looking at this, like, this is not that great of a product listing because I'll just screen share. Like, if this comes with a heater, you should put that this comes with a heater, because looking at these photos, this just looks like it's a bed with the magnets embedded. That's it. But, I mean, I would assume it does. It says heaters manufactured in the UK, PTFE coated wires, a thermal fuse to prevent bed fire, and a ground cable. So I'm going to assume these are AC beds. If they're going to these lengths here with a thermal fuse and a ground cable. These are both welcome additions. I'm not dunking on them. It's just this product page is kind of shitty. Looking at this, I'm questioning if it comes with a heater. Like, here's a bed heater. This is separate. And just this heater is $89. I would assume it comes with it. I would message them and see. Because even in this photo, I can't really tell. Do they have an installation guide? Discord server, installation guides. Discovery, that's such a stupid name. Put it like contact us or support or something. Let's see. Do they have pictures here? I'm assuming they do. Oh, they're literally having you screw this on top of the existing bed. That's a terrible idea. What? Am I reading this right? Line up the full bed. On top, wait, on top of the existing holes for the stock aluminum heater. So this is not even including a heater? I mean, if it's actually flat, that's not terrible price, but I think they just have a really shitty product page. I don't think that comes with a heater. I think they probably copied this. Let's see. I'm willing to bet they copied this from their other product page and they forgot to change it. Like, does this come with... So here, this shows a heater here. Okay. And this is the same one. I'm willing to bet that they just copy and pasted this product description and never updated it, because this does not look like this comes with a plate. And here, you're adding a whole nother aluminum plate. This is going to make your bed really heavy. I don't like that. I mean, they should at least have an upgrade to buy another heater. Like, do they carry heaters for the Enders? And one for the Genius. What is this? Their shop's a little weird. Does this work with the Ender 3? Probably not. It's for the Artillery Genius. I mean, these heaters look nice. I like the grounding. They got the nice silicone wire. But yeah, I'm going to assume that this doesn't come with the heater, because the installation guide shows you putting it on top, and even right here you can see it's on top. You're basically doubling the weight of your bed, which is going to increase ringing. And then you're throwing a metal flex plate on top of it. Yeah. Update your guys' page. Yeah, it's more like a heat spreader. You're throwing a bed on top of a bed. But for the record, if that's actually flat within 0.1 millimeters, $85 for something that flat is not terrible. So, yeah, it's not a here. It goes on top of the factory bed. That's kind of stupid. Yeah, I see somebody here. Ban spammer. There we go. All right. Nathan, how is inventory for the EasyBoard 2? We have more in production, and we have a few right now. I'm gonna check right now. I do have an infrared camera. Those are fun. I don't know if you guys have ever messed with infrared cameras, but I have. They're a lot of fun. I got it's a Seek thermal that I adapted to work on the computer, which is pretty cool. I've used it on some streams and test videos. Right now, we've got right around 100 Easy Boards in stock. So, and once those sell out, it says we got about 20 days worth of stock left. So, if you guys are thinking about getting one, you should probably do it sooner than later, because our next shipment's not going to be in for about 3 to 4 weeks at the least. So, Vincent's asked about the ABL micro probe. I have them on, I have the final retail versions coming in right as we speak right now. I don't have an ETA. They're being manufactured right now. So Vincent says he's using he's on the Artillery Ruby on the Hornet. So I'm assuming you're rolling your own firmware. In order to save your baby stepping, you have to have if you want to save the baby steps you made to the offset, you have to have the combine offset option on in the configuration advanced, and you also have to have EEPROM support enabled in the firmware. Those two things are the minimum you need to be able to save the offset and also combine. So like in our firmware by default, if you baby step and you have a BL Touch or an Easy ABL installed, you're modifying the Z offset. So what you can do is then dial in your offset perfectly and then save it. But that requires your firmware to have the combination of the baby stepping and your Z offset set in the firmware, and that's in the configuration ADV file in the baby stepping settings. And again, you also have to have EEPROM support enabled in the firmware. Zeriel is asking, are a certain brand fan good for hot end replacements? You need to find a fan, and this is with any brand of fan, you need to find a fan that has adequate airflow and the correct voltage and the correct size for your printer. I can't just blanket say, oh yes, this brand of fan is going to work great with a printer. You need to get something that's adequate airflow for the machine you have, for the hot end you have, and depending on where you're putting it. So if you're talking about using something on, putting something on your hot end, the requirements are different than something cooling a control box or your control board. A lot of times you can use the same for both, but like as some people have found, if you put like, you know, some of the low flow Noctua fans, like the 10 millimeter thick, 40 millimeter Noctua fans on like a Creality hot end, like the stock Shroud, you get heat creep because that air is not directed towards the heatsink and it's not a lot of airflow. And then you get heat creep and your printer stops printing correctly. So I'm going to answer these last 3 questions and I'm going to wrap this up because we are at the hour mark right now. So even accounting for the late start. So use whatever you want, Nathan. I will say if you are getting EasyBoard V2, the current vanilla Marlin, so 2.0.9.3, when they updated the pins files and the environments, the 2093 release from Marlin, the bug fix should be good because I let Scott know that there was an issue. It will not work correctly. The way they set up the environment does not compile firmware in a way that the bootloader will take it. So, and that wasn't me breaking stuff. That was them updating code and breaking things. They broke a lot of stuff in 2093. But if you are using like our EasyBoard in like a custom printer build, we do have our DIY firmware out for the V2 and the V1. Justin Dybell said, I was lucky this week. Heater cartridge went bad, causing a wire heat up. Took out the heater wires and melted the part fan insulation. No fires, not even smells. Just a surprise. That's wild. I'm assuming the heater cartridge just went to a dead short. That would do it. That's the one thing. Like I do want to touch on that with Marlin. I love Marlin. Don't get me wrong. But the reason we have our own version that we call Unified 2, so Unified 2, and there's idiots out there that will say, I try to say Unified is our firmware. Unified 2 is our firmware in that it's a version of Marlin that we put out. I am not shy and not trying to hide at all that Unified 2 is built on top of Marlin. The thing is, when we have, Marlin's a community-based thing, and when you have updates being pushed out that break things, and they don't know that things are broken until people report them, so I try to report things that are broken, because we found issues with, in Marlin 2093 with our EasyBoard V2, we found issues with our, with the Creality dual extrusion boards and a couple of the ramps boards where the pin settings got completely screwed up, and we fixed those on our version of Unified 2. So if you look back through our changelogs, you'll see commits to our GitHub and releases addressing those issues. So while our firmware isn't always going to be on the bleeding edge of what Marlin has out, the focus is making sure that it actually works. And the thing with printer firmware is it's not like your computer. You don't have to update it all the time. And even devices like, the Easy Plugs that run Tasmoda, these are all devices that stay on your, if it's a network connected device like the plugs, they stay behind your firewall. They're not being directly accessed by internet connections or services where you have to be very concerned about security. Especially the printer. Your printer, if it's connected to the network, it's usually over USB through Octoprint. So it's one of those things where if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, I have printers here that probably have firmware from 2 or 3 years ago, and I don't touch it because it works. So unless you're upgrading, because you're doing an upgrade to your printer that requires a firmware update, or there's a bug that you need patched for your particular system, or there's a new feature that got added in that you want to use, there's no point to upgrade your printer firmware. So anytime you see us put out a firmware update, you do not need to upgrade. If nothing's broken and everything's working fine, then keep using it. It's not like your computer or your phone or other devices that constantly need updates. So as long as you got thermal protection and your printer's running, don't mess with it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So Nathan says, you inspire me into the home automation with Tesmoda. Tesmoda is awesome. There's a lot of awesome. If someone asks me what's my favorite like chip to play with, it's these ESPs. The 8266s are my favorite because they're cheap. The 32s are faster, but you know what? The 8266s do 99.9% of what I do for my projects, and they're slightly cheaper. That's what I use. These ESP chips are awesome. Like the printer controllers are cool, but I love tinkering with stuff, and these ESPs are amazing. I wish we had this stuff when I was younger. I'm looking at other vanilla Tesmoda devices for my home. I'm really liking how the NeoPixels look and work. So yeah, I mean, Tesmoda supports NeoPixels, ESP Home supports NeoPixels, WLED supports NeoPixels. I'm sure there's a bunch of other firmwares out there that you can run on these ESP chips that will work with NeoPixels. I actually have, I think I showed it off on the channel, but I've got a home theater set up downstairs, and I actually took our Easy Neo strips, which are those, they're 220 millimeter long strips for the printers, and I actually put them on the bottom of the speakers because they have feet on them that elevate them off the ground. So I actually have indirect lighting on the bottom of my speakers, and I connected the Easy Neos to an ESP 8266 running the WLED firmware, and I'm able to control them through Home Assistant. So I got, you know, it's cool. So if you were looking for a, if you're looking for, you know, just a nice hard PCB strip, you can use our Easy Neo strips with ESP projects or anything else that can drive a NeoPixel. The NeoPixel is a pretty useful protocol, and it's very universal. There's a lot of different chips that are not NeoPixel chips, but they all talk the NeoPixel protocol. So I have a lot of NeoPixels. I have on the theater screen downstairs, I've got a 150-inch screen down there that I built a 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch frame that it mounts to, and it's undersized by 1/2 inch on every side. And then screwed to the sides are 45-degree aluminum channels with a diffuser, and inside those channels are 12-volt NeoPixel strips, and those connect to ESP32s. And I actually do live backlighting changes, ambient backlight changes based on what's going to the projector, so it extends the colors out. It extends the colors out to the wall. It's freaking awesome. I'll show it off. I love showing off my projects. Yeah. So if you guys do want to like, please don't bother me. I'll like, don't harass me and like ping me a lot because I'll just ignore you. But you know, don't abuse it. But I am in our Discord server. If you guys do want to chat, just don't be using me as your personal technical support, please. I've got enough stuff to do. But if you want to talk home automation, I am down. Nathan is asking, why have you decided to sell the Corelli boards on our site? Because they're good budget boards. They are. They're good budget boards. I use them. So our whole thing here, and I still stick with this, is if I will not put it in my own printer, I'm not selling it to you guys. So that's why I don't sell the Big Tree Tech stuff. So other than them being a warranty nightmare. Madcat, will the Unified 2 firmware work on an Ender 3 V2 with a 422/512K board? I got the Gyros firmware with the Gyros UI on it now. I'm not happy with the BL Touch results. Yes, it will. So, and we do, the Gyros settings are in, the Gyros settings are available in our firmware. So if you open up the Ender 3 V2 firmware and do open the configuration H file and do a Control F and type JYERS, it'll take you to a block of code where there's a bunch of different options for the screen, whether it's the Marlin UI, Gyros, the Creality Enhanced one, etc. We default to the Marlin UI because it's the same experience on that screen as the 12864. So in terms of consistency across different printers, if you're used to using it on a printer with a 12864, you can use it on there. The one thing I do want to mention, and this will be coming out in the next firmware update, I will give a shout out to Dave over at Insanity Automation for letting me know that this is a thing, and also making us a custom little splash screen for the firmware update. But the Ender 3 V2 and the Ender 3 S1 are shipping with different LCDs now. And the firmware update that we currently have for that LCD will not work on the new LCDs. The new update package is The new update package is available on the testing branch of our GitHub. So TH3D Studio / Unified Firmware is the repository. But we will be pushing that out. And basically they changed processors, probably because of the silicon shortage. And the good news is they pull from different folders, so it's still the same zip file. It's still put it on a FAT32 formatted with the 4096 allocation byte SD card and update it. So I do want to let you know. So if you have a newer Ender 3 V2 and you're using our firmware and the LCD is just not working right or it looks corrupt and weird, that's why. And that software is already on our GitHub in the testing branch. So I am going to do a little quick rundown here because you guys might not be familiar with how GitHub works. I'm just going to assume most people don't because it's just not something that most people are privy to. So if you want to keep up to date with what I'm working on and kind of get like a little glance of what I'm doing behind the scenes, a good thing to do is watch our unified firmware, GitHub repo. So you can go to github.com/th3dstudio /unified firmware, and that'll take you here. Now, if we do with a drop down here and switch to 2.0.x-testing, this is where I push my testing. You see here, I was literally working on this today. So if you go to commits here, you can see all the changes I've made and pushed up to our GitHub here. So you can see here, I was screwing around thinking I was going to need a special environment for the F303s. I ended up not needing it, so I reverted it. Just do some tuning here. You can see here, this is where all my changes go. Where is the... Here, update LCD firmware pack. You can see right here. I updated the folder. You can see these were deleted because it was Ender 3 V2. This will be for the V2 and the S1. They will use the same update package. So if you go here and hit view file, it's just going to take you here, but you can hit download and you can get this file right now. It's publicly accessible. So if we open this folder, you'll see there's not just a DWin set file in here anymore. There's also this private and this Chinese character text file. This will handle both LCDs. And I'll just show you, and like I said, I appreciate Dave from Insanity Automation. He actually made us a little splash screen for these with our logo, his logo, and then Unified 2. So get a little cute splash screen on there. But this will be pushed on the next update. So if we go here, we go LCD Firmware Ender 3 V2, or just LCD firmware folder on 2.0.x, which is what the releases are based off of. You see it's still the older one updated last month. But if I drop down here, now you can see we have the new folder V2S1. You can see here 3 days ago, I uploaded this file here. So that's how you can see what I'm doing. So if you just follow the commits here for not the 2.0.x, but the 2.0.x testing. So you can see my last update here was on February 22nd. Okay, you can say I merged all my changes from the testing branch into the 2.0 branch. But if we go to 2.0 testing, you can see here, I work on it quite frequently. So I'm literally the only one that does firmware updates. So any code that you see on here, this is me. If you look here, you can see all the commits are my username. And I work on the firmware quite frequently. So if you're kind of wondering what I'm working on firmware-wise, you can follow the commits here on the 2.0 testing branch. You can see here, like, I was just going through. I was like, oh, I don't have it set to flag the 422 board in the Ender 3 V2 with the trinamic drivers because this will also check when this flag is set, this 42X, TMC22X drivers. I have a sanity check in the firmware that if this is enabled along with linear advance, it will fail to compile and throw an error because you can't use linear advance on those drivers. They just shit the bed because they're not wired in UART mode, so we can't put them in with square wave stepping. So linear advance with those boards just doesn't work correctly. So instead of dealing with a million support tickets I'm using linear advance and my extruder stops moving, we just don't let you compile and throw an error. So what time is the next stream? I'm thinking like 7 o'clock because I got to clean this. I got to move this off the bench and clean this up because I'm going to be doing all the soldering stuff for the LED strip. So I'm thinking like 7 o'clock. We'll do some fusion work. I might do some of the fusion work on stream, or maybe I'll do it after here. I got to eat something. Darth J is asking about the Ender 3 or Ender 5 Plus upgrade kit. I should be getting some screens in later today. I'm just checking my cameras. I don't see any deliveries out there, but I'm literally getting 12 more screens in today, and then the bulk of them should be coming in the next week or two. So basically, if you are waiting on buying one of those and you want to get the full kit from us, you can obviously try to find LCDs elsewhere, but if you buy an LCD from somewhere else and it doesn't work, our tech support's not going to support something you bought elsewhere. So that's one of the things. You buy stuff from us, we actually will support it. Let's see. Jay Moore, will you be adding support for the Easy Neo with the Ender 3 V2 LCD? You should be able to use it right now with our latest firmware. If I'm correct. We can test it out right now. Yeah, screw it. I said I was gonna stop streaming, but whatever. You guys are intriguing me. We should be good. This already has the latest firmware on it, so I shouldn't have to update this. Let me grab a 4.2x board. You know what? Let's see if the NeoPixels work on these clones. This is the GD32. So on the Easy Neos, for this board, you do need for like long-term use, you do need a separate 5-volt power adapter. But just for this demo, I'm going to pull power from the board. I do not recommend this because this voltage regulator is not the best quality. And I don't know what their fuse is set at. So, but for testing purposes, it'll work fine. But like for the 422 and the 427 boards, we recommend you use, like we have what we call our universal power adapter, which is a 5-volt step down. So let's get this going. We'll kill 2 birds with 1 stone. We'll see if the NeoPixel control works on the GD boards. I would assume it's going to be okay, but like I said, there were weird, like, yeah, you guys know those like Big Tree Tech touchscreens that they have for the Ender 3s? I have one in my testing machine just so I have a touchscreen to test serial communications. And it would corrupt all the time on these GD boards. It doesn't do it on the STM. So, let's see. ARM 2. Hey! Alright, so this is a 12-volt power adapter. Where's my screwdriver? Things are not where they should be. This makes Tim frustrated. Ah. There we go. You can see here I was testing one of these little ESPs. My 5th one is downstairs, so I got 5 of these boards, and then I'm going to be using 4 because I have 4 of those standing lights, which is what I want to work on later tonight. All right. And I should have an Easy Neo strip in my testing bin here. And we'll compile some firmware. So, yeah, so I got 5-volt out on the BL touch header. And like I said, I do not recommend you do this for a long-term install. I'm just doing this just for a quick test because it's not going to stress out the voltage regulator just having it on for a couple minutes. Ah, I thought I had some in here. I was like, I thought I did. Yes, I do. You can tell this poor NeoPixel cable was one I used for testing because it was cut and then I tacked it back on. So ignore that. These are just my janky testing parts that I use. They're functional. They're not pretty. So I'm just going to use some DuPont jumpers to make the connection to the header here. My pizza receipt, I got to scan that in. See, oh god, you can get to see some of my quick and dirty hacks, because this is what I do when I'm testing. Just send it. Just gonna send it. I love DuPont jumpers. So we've got our, oh, that damn cheap jumpers. I have so many of these damn things. All right, so signal, we're going to go to in. So I'm just making these connections here. So signal's going to go to in there. I'm going to use the purple for my ground. And we're just going to go off one of the ground pins there. And then V, that should be a 5 volt, so that goes to the red. And like I said, I do not recommend using this for anything other than quick testing like I'm doing now. If you are going to power NeoPixels, or if you are going to run NeoPixels, especially on these 422 boards and some of the Big Tree Tech boards, put a separate 5 volt step down. We do carry, we call them the universal power adapters, but they're a preset 5 volt step down. So let me go ahead and switch over. I'm going to grab an SD card to flash the firmware with. Where's one of my small ones? I will say I did notice that the bootloaders on these GD boards are very picky when it comes to taking firmware. Like, I know our EasyBoard V1, the LPC processors were pretty picky when it came to taking firmware. These are even worse. So there's that. Give me a second. Internal tools, assemble test folders. This is a 512K clone chip. So we're going to use our 512K STM32 firmware because it works. So let's see. Let's share my monitor here. It's probably going to open. Yeah, it's my WLED sketch or project. It's for those shields I showed off earlier. All right, we're going to open the firmware. I got my SD card in. I'm going to make sure this is formatted FAT32, 4096 allocation bytes. Don't know why, but these boards and stuff seem to prefer that. So I'm going to go ahead. We're going to flash this as Ender 3 V2 422 board. Go ahead and save that. And I'm going to tell it I have the Easy Neo 220, and we're going to tell it what pin we have it on. I am going to look up on my own website here and see what pins those are, because I can't remember off the top. So Creality, so Easy Neo lighting kits 422, 427, 431. And I should have these here. So we have PB0 and PB1. So I'm connected to PB0. So I'm going to tell this I'm PB0, PB0, and let's go ahead and see if this compiles. If you guys are behind on the chat, if you hit the little gear icon on the YouTube video preview and set playback speed to like 1.5 times or 2 times, if you can hear me talking that fast, it will get you caught up. Little YouTube hack there. So this should be it. So I totally have Ender 3 V2. Also, when I was saying the different screen options, the only one we will actually support. So if you modify this and you have issues, we're going to tell you to go back to our defaults. But if you do a Control F in here and search gyres, it'll take you to this section. And you can see these are the different options for the Ender 3.2 V2 LCD. Oh, there's a typo. We're going to fix that. I'm going to have to fix that. There's a typo in my config file. I must have been thinking about the Ender 3 V2. Let's see. Let's go ahead and fix that before I forget. Ender 3 V2. There we go. But yeah, you can comment this out and use the gyres and stuff if you want. We don't support the gyres one. You can use it, but we're not providing tech support for it. Remember my PIO is updating? Apparently it was waiting for me to acknowledge an update. Where's my SD card? I had my SD card up. Where did my SD card go, guys? I think it's E. No? Alright, let me reinsert it. But we have our bin file. Also, didn't realize this, but you can do this. Check this out. You can just drag your bin file right from here onto the SD card. Magical. Alright. So let's see if this is going to play nicely with the Ender 3 V2 LCD and this clone chip. I'm going to go ahead and plug this into 12 volt. Ignore the beeping. It should go away once it updates the firmware. It doesn't look like it's wanting to take the firmware, because it should stop beeping by now. Let's see. Nope, let's try a different SD card. That's what I mean. These boards are very picky about their cards. I think I've got like an old 128 mag one in here. This one's got no label. Let's see. Yeah, these boards are very picky about their SD cards for some godforsaken reason. Let's try this. A 128 meg. I don't even know where I got this from. I think this came with one of the Big Tree Tech boards. I'm copying the file back onto my computer here. Or onto the SD card. And now Explorer's hanging. Come on. Dear God. Why are SD readers so damn finicky? I don't get it. Alright, let's try this other card. Yeah, so if you guys ever have a board that's not taking firmware, try a different card. I think it might take it because the LED over here was not blinking right. Now it is. Alright, let's see. Nope, we're still screaming. Screaming like a banshee. How many cards are we going to have to try before it actually flashes the firmware? I have no idea. Let me try renaming it. Sometimes that makes these boards happy. Try it again. And actually, here's what we're going to do so the board doesn't scream at me. We're going to hook this up, and then when this display stops working, we'll know it took the Ender 3 V2 firmware. Yay, troubleshooting. Should see how, okay, so do you see how the logo came up right away? That's how I know it didn't take the firmware. Because the logo came up right away. So try it again. Nope. This is the issue I had with these GD boards. They don't like taking the firmware. It's a huge pain in the ass. I'm just trying to remember what card I had the best success with. Like, it's like literally Russian roulette with SD cards with these boards. It's fantastic. I'm gonna go ahead and just recompile completely. Nobody tells you about the frustrations with this shit. We're just gonna recompile. Do you want a dingo stick? I know it's been... He's like, where's my dingo stick, Dad? It's been over an hour. Can we sit? Can we sit? Can we sit? Speak. Yeah? Shake. Good boy. Good boy. He is very food motivated, if you can't tell. My frame rate's going to go to crap while it's compiling because it's maxing out my processor. Yeah, no one ever tells you this stuff. This is what you don't see, is me fighting with these boards, cycling power. Come on, take the firmware. Do it. Take the firmware. Damn it, take the firmware. I think this one has the Maple build on it right now, which was a pain in the ass to get it to take to begin with. And I feel like it makes it more prone to not taking it. I'm going to actually safely eject this and see if that has anything to do with it. Try it again. Yay! How many of you guys have issues where the boards won't take stuff and you're swapping SD cards? There we go. Do you see how the logo didn't come up? That's how I know it actually took the firmware. So I'm going to give it a sec to fully flash the firmware. And then I'm going to plug the Ender 3 V2 LCD back into it. All right. Let's see if these boards work with the V2 LCD. I would assume they do. We'll find out. We'll do it live. We're not getting the screams. This is interesting. This is interesting that the screen's not coming up with these GD boards. Let me try updating the LCD firmware with that new package I was telling you guys about and see if that fixes it. If not, I'm wondering if these boards don't work with the V2 LCDs. Let me prepare a card for the LCD. So FAT32, 4096 allocation bytes. There's a lot of differences, Jose, between the V2 Easy Board and the V1. At the end of the day, they both do the same thing. And if you have a V1 that's working fine, in all honesty, it's not worth upgrading. Like, we overkilled the V1, and the V2 is even more overkill. Like, the V2 is faster, has twice the memory, has more RAM, has built-on NeoPixel power headers. If you guys do have a V1 Easy Board and you want to add NeoPixels onto it, the power adapters, we have them clearanced out to $1. So if you guys want to pick those up, once they're gone, we are not making any more. So if you have an Easy Board V1 and you think you might want to add NeoPixels onto it at some point, you should just pick one up now. They're literally $1. I'm selling them below cost because I just want to clear them out. We don't sell the V1 Easy Boards anymore. And I ordered way too many. I overestimated how many people would want to put NeoPixels on their printer. So, but yeah, the V2's got 2209 drivers versus the V1 is 2208s. At the end of the day, again, it's not going to affect anything for you. The 2208s and 2209s are very similar. We do have sensorless homing available on the 2209s, but I don't recommend you use it. It's hooked up. It's there for the DIY type people if they want to use it, but I do not recommend using it because end stops are more accurate. So, all right, let's see. I'm going to update the LCD firmware. So on the Ender 3 V2 screens, you can tell it's taking the firmware because it'll turn blue like this, and then it'll turn orange. I believe it takes about 30 seconds. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. There we go. It's orange. So I can turn it off. God, my SD slot on this LCD is so crunchy. This is the one that came with my V2 Ender 3. And my V2 Ender 3 is in the print farm and it has the 12864 on it. All right, let's see if that... Oh! It's screaming again. Did I get bamboozled? Did this chip not actually take the firmware? Did I get bamboozled? I got bamboozled! So I probably didn't need to update the firmware. Don't you love printers? Don't you love these damn things? Dear God. You gotta love this shit. Come on. Pick up my SD card. You stupid SD reader. I have so many finicky SD readers. I just bought this one. Let's try it again. Yeah, it did not flash. You can see it's got my GD32 testing build on here. And of course, these Creality piece of crap SD cards aren't working. Surprise, surprise. Let's try... I can't remember which one I was using when I was testing these boards, but these boards are picky about pulling firmware in. So that's not even a question. I think I found the one I was using when I was testing. It's like this random unbranded 8 GB card. All right. Let's try it. Let's see if it'll take the firmware. Dude, these GD chips. I wonder if my SD slot on this is flaky. Let's try holding it down. Nope. I do not like these GD chips. They're such a pain in the ass. But yeah, behind the scenes, this is what I do, and Remo's getting into stuff. Hey, lay down. Lay down. Go on your couch. Couch. Go. No, that does not mean come over here. Okay, fine. Come here. You want pets? You needy little brat? Huh? You needy little brat? Let's try it again. I reformatted the SD card, recompile. I hate these chips so much. Just for the sake of not dragging this out, I'm going to grab a 427 board with an actual STM chip, and we're going to compile for the Ender 3 V2 with the 427. Because these GD chips, like, I'm not just talking shit about them because I have a preference. I'm talking shit about them because of shit like this. So here, we have Ender 3 V2, 427 board. Let's go ahead and clean out our folder. And I'm going to go ahead, it's going to try to upload it. I hate when it does that. Hang on, let's clean this out. Clean. Up, see what happens? I jumped the gun because the thing moves. All right, let's go ahead and compile. Lay down. So this is a 427 with an actual STM chip. If you don't want to deal with these crappy boards, we do sell the 427s with the real processors on them. So I'm going to move these pins over. Oh, and here's another thing. If you're going to connect with DuPonts onto this BL Touch header, if you take a pair of if you take a pair of needle-nose pliers and pull straight up, they do come off, and then you have bare pins to work with. Just a little hacky hack that I do. All right, bye-bye clone. This one I'm assuming should boot, and probably has regular firmware, or maybe it's the V2. I think it's probably the V2 firmware actually. Let's see, because I think that's the board I tested this on. Oh, look at that. Let's power cycle. Oh yeah, I was playing with the horizontal mode. So you see that? You can have a horizontal mode. Okay. All right, let me copy over my firmware that has the NeoPixels enabled to the SD card and flash this board. And we should get a vertical screen then, because it's using my firmware defaults. All right, let's see. These boards are usually well behaved. Oh, there we go. See the NeoPixels? So this is the Ender 3 V2 firmware. If we go here, look at, we got lights on and off. And then, yeah, so these will work with the Ender 3 V2 stock LCD with our latest firmware. Now, I don't know if the gyres interface has support for this, but yes, it does work. Just because this is a 427, it'll work fine with the stock board. The stock board's a 422. Unless it's a GD32, apparently, because I can't get it to take the damn firmware, but I'll play with that offline. Here, let's see. Let's go ahead and put the gyres build on here. So I'm going to switch the UI settings. You see that? It took the firmware right away, because it's not a GD32 board. Damn clones. All right, let's see. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to comment out Marlin Portrait. I'm going to uncomment gyres. Let's see if gyres has LED control. So you see, I just switched this out. So I commented out the default one, which is Marlin UI Portrait, which is for the Ender 3 V2 since the screen's mounted vertical. If you have your screen mounted horizontal, you could comment out Portrait and uncomment Landscape, and then you'll get a landscape mode. But these other three options, I do not recommend you mess with, just because we don't provide support for them. Gyres did a lot of good work, but the Marlin UI is my go-to. All right, so this is my latest build file. This should be the gyres build. Now, if you know you have your NeoPixels powered and wired correctly, when the firmware boots, they'll do a cycle through the colors. You see that? Red, green, blue. That's what they do. So, okay, this is the gyres UI. One thing I noticed, you guys noticed that? The loading bar was like in the middle of the splash screen, which, whatever. But let's see, do they have LCD settings or LED? Maybe under visual? So here's the thing. You could control these LEDs through G-code commands. Even if you can't do it from the LCD. I'm just not a fan of this menu layout, personally. And control, is it advanced maybe? Yeah, it doesn't look like they have, unless I'm missing it. I would assume it'd be under visual. Assuming display off, well, pressing again will bring it back. If you set display off, how are you supposed to bring it back? That's a terrible user interface option. Do you guys see that? They have a display off option, and it literally shuts it off, and you can't turn it back on. That is a terrible idea. Why? UI color settings? Nope. Yeah, so I mean, this looks pretty, but you don't have all the same options. This is why I don't like these interfaces. Like, yeah, so you can use the Gyros UI and you can use them, but you're not gonna be able to control any NeoPixels from that. So if I put the other build back on, let's go back here and add my SD card back in. I'm gonna go ahead and just put it back to Gyros UI. Now, I don't think I do have the original Marlin files here. I'm going to see if there's an option. I'm going to search Gyros in here. I think that's it. There's nothing in the advanced file. Sound menu item. Let me see what I have set in my configuration backend. If enabled RGB lights, enable LED control menu. Yeah, so the menu is enabled because when you uncomment the Easy Neo, so if we uncomment the Easy Neo, we're defining RGB lights. So yeah, so the Gyros firmware does not, the Gyros LCD does not support controlling the LEDs. So, but that's fine. We can go back and compile, and you can flash back and forth this easily. This is, I don't care if it's not in Marlin, we're not putting in our firmware. So if he's made changes since Marlin 2.09.3 release, and if they don't make it into Marlin, so he doesn't merge his code into Marlin, they're never going to end up in ours, because I do not pull code from other people's repositories, because the problem is if I start pulling code from Marlin and I pull code from Gyros and whoever else makes firmware, it makes maintaining updates to our code even harder. So what he should be doing, which is the whole point of open source, is sending his code back upstream, which he did at one point because it's in Marlin, anytime he makes updates. So, but it's hard enough integrating updates from Marlin themselves instead of also having to integrate updates from every other Tom, Dick, and Harry that's making a Marlin port. We do document what files we've changed from the stock Marlin files in ours, so if people want to update or do changes, it's easier. So you can see there, it did turn the lights on like it's supposed to, and like, there we go. So, yep. You can use it with the stock screen now. You just have to use Marlin UI, which is what our firmware defaults to. So, I think I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to check if there's any other quick questions here. I'm on Central Time. So, Jay, yes, the Easy Neos work on the Ender 3 V2 with our firmware with the stock Marlin UI. If you're using Gyros, it's not going to give you any options. So, yeah. Dimitri K, what do you use for device monitor? Not exactly SNMP, but something simpler. I have, for all my network devices, I actually just use, I'm all Unify here in-house, so I just use Unify's stuff, and then I've got some monitoring with Home Assistant to let me know when certain things go down. So, but I think they'll do. I don't care if Marlin UI is ugly; it works and it has all the features. So, I'll take function over form. So this isn't a cell phone. This is a printer. I don't care how pretty it looks. It has to work, and the Marlin UI works. So, that's about it. I already gave Remo his dingo stick. Do you guys see how cute he is? Like, he is literally using a pillow right now. Do you guys see this? He literally is putting his head on a pillow. How adorable is that? That's why I have throw pillows in here, because he literally uses it as a little headrest. He's so cute. Come here. Come here. Here. Can you go up? Up. Come on. There you are. Whoa. All right. Well, wasn't expecting a French kiss. Yeah. Do you want another dingo stick? Do you want another dingo stick? You big ox. They say to give you another dingo stick. Oh. Oh, I almost dropped the whole bag. Can we sit? Can we sit? Shake. Touch. Speak. Good boy. And that'll wrap this up. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I'm going to go ahead and post this out to the podcast. Also, if you guys don't know, the Ask Tim streams get exported as audio only, so you can subscribe to them with your favorite podcast client. We're on all the major platforms. So if you want to catch up on the backlog and you're driving and want something to listen to, go check it out. We're literally on all of them. Apple, Spotify, Google, you name it. So anyways, I will talk to you guys later. I hope you guys enjoyed this stream. And as always, happy printing.